Hi everyone, so today's video we'll be going through Rhino 7 rendering with Enscape. This is actually part 4 of a series of videos going over 3D modeling Weekend House by Ryue Nishizawa. If you haven't already, feel free to go back to some of the previous videos to go through how we got to this point. But to dive in, the first step is to download Enscape. It's a 3D engine tool. I would say that generally Rhino does not have the best rendering engines, so you might look at another plugin such as V-Ray, which I have here, or Enscape. I actually find Enscape to be one of the most friendly rendering tools to start out with, so this is one I would suggest. So you can go online, download the Enscape tool, or plugin, sorry, and then if you go to toolbar layout, then make sure Enscape is checked off, hit OK, then you'll have it right here. So I've kind of just put it on the bar here, and then I've just highlighted it. So if you've kind of followed us to this point, you will have built your 3D model and made sure that you use the layers. The reason why we use the layers is so that we can assign different materials to each layer. So in this case, you can see 3D glass, floor, grass, actually this should say probably gravel. But we can go and assign material properties to each of these. So if I'm going to just click on glass, right? And it's under the layers and under the material, you can click here. And then if you're using Enscape in our case, we'll need to make it an Enscape material. And then let's say glass, we'll just name the material glass. And then what you would do is go to this button right here to tune materials in the project. It should pull up, just give it one moment as my computer thinks. Alright, there you go. So we have glass, so we made it right here. Now we can pull it up in the Enscape material editor. And for glass, there isn't maybe a texture to it. Sometimes you do have like an image that you want to assign to that material. But for glass, I think we can just stick to generic. And going down here, you can do transmittance. You can actually look at the refractive index for glass. I think it's about 1.2, so we'll just slide it there. And you can toggle what kind of opacity. So do you want it to be very clear glass? Do you want it to be slightly opaque? You can even check this off to be frosted. I'm just going to dial it down so you can kind of see through it a little bit better. And you can even tint the colored glass, right? Do you want a white? Do you want a slightly blue or yellow? I'm just going to leave that right here. So I think that's good. Now to see what that looks like, I'm just going to go into the perspective view. So you'll see these materials around the courtyard, or the glass layer. Right? You can toggle that on and off. So if I click this button, Start Enscape. The great thing about Enscape is it's actually an active real-time renderer. So kind of like video games where you're navigating through the terrain and then it's kind of rendering as you go. Versus some rendering engines, you kind of have to create a view and then export that view, and that's all you kind of see. Versus here, you can kind of see it in real time. Now, I think you can see the glass is quite see-through. Again, if you wanted a bit more opaque, I can minimize this, go back to my materials, and let's make the opacity back to roughly 50%. And we can go here, and you can see it's a little bit easier to see the glass. Right, so let's keep it that way, and let's go about rendering the rest of the materials. So the floor, let's call it an Enscape material, wood flooring. Okay, the columns, that will be an Enscape material, let's call it wood. So the door panes, you can also set the material. I think I'll make it the siding material, so blue siding. Okay. I can, I think, choose it right here since I already made it. The walls, I can choose blue siding. Okay. The roof, let's call it like a metal. And then this will be gravel. Okay, I think that's good for now. Yeah, I think I haven't missed anything. I can always come back. So going back to the materials, I can go and assign some properties to them. So the texture for the blue siding, I've actually downloaded a bunch of textures online. You can go up to various free websites to download textures, or go to Google Images and look up, say, wood flooring texture. Try to look for seamless textures. That way, when it's kind of tiled together, it will be hard to discern how the materials are kind of stitched together. Okay, I think I'm missing the blue siding material, so I can, maybe I'll go back to this gravel. Gravel texture. If you have a bump map, this is if you want to create a texture to it. You can actually get a little bit fancier with it, so it'd be like a black and white image that can create depressions or kind of like a certain elevation to kind of have more of a texture to it. For now, I don't have that, so let's just keep it pretty basic. For the metals, I'll bring in that texture. The wood. Let's use this wood texture, and then wood flooring. Wood flooring. Okay. So for you, if you're looking for your textures, this will take a little bit longer. But yeah, other properties you might consider. Bump map, that's the displacement, you know, if you want to add some texture to it. Roughness, metallic, so maybe my metal one, you can make it shinier. Specular, this is for any non-metals, those kind of surfaces. You want to play around with this. And then the transparency. So going to my metal, maybe I want to change, up this a little bit. Again, you can always test it out, see what it looks like. So for the blue siding, I can go back to my materials, brought it here. Okay. And okay, let's just see what that looks like for now. I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to restart Enscape. Okay, so interesting. So what's happening here is we haven't chosen the scale that it's going to be placed at, so that's definitely important. And then there's like the pebbles. So one thing is like the mapping of it, right? So you need to tell the rendering engine how do you want the texture to be applied. So that's why you got some like wonky stuff going on here. So let's go back. And when you look at the objects for the walls, select objects. What you want to do is go to properties and then texture mapping. And then make sure that you apply box mapping. And then let's just see what that looks like. By picking one corner, picking another corner, and then if we turn off project, there's that. Right, so it's going to project the materials like the surfaces of a box. You can imagine if you started projecting the materials like a cylinder, it's going to show the materials in a very wonky fashion. So let's just see maybe what that might look like now. Some of them are better. These ones are a little strange. So now looking at this, then I'll select objects, properties, let's pick the box, apply box mapping, create a box around everything, capped, yes. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so it's better, right? A bit more fixed up. Now, if you want them to be smaller pieces of siding, that's when we choose the maybe properties. We select objects, look at the object properties. Here we can change the sizing of the map, right? You can make it larger, smaller. So I want to see more slats, so I believe I should make this smaller. Let's do it 7,000. So roughly half. And again, let's see how that affects it. Okay, nothing there. Let's reduce this by 0.5. Okay, let's do it the other way. So it's a lot smaller here, right? Let's do 3. Okay, so I think that's more like what we want, right? A little bit thinner. Notice the doors, though, how their mapping is applied isn't quite the same, so we'll have to do that there. Okay, so next we want to apply the same mapping for the doors, so I can select these objects. For simplicity's sake, we can just explode and then apply the mapping. If you want to do it, I guess, more organized, you would actually edit the block and then go from there, but just so I'm just all in one place, I'm just going to explode it, and then I'm going to select the objects, and then go to properties, get the mapping, I'm going to do the same thing, box mapping here, and then let's say capped yes, and then let's just apply the same kind of ratio, and let's see what it looks like. So it looks good. Actually, you might want to make the frames a metal, so let's switch that to metal. Okay, what does that look like? Oh, let's make the panes the blue siding though. Okay, so that's kind of good. The frames are metal, and then the panes are still kind of like that slat, so it kind of blends in a good bit. Next is the pebbles, so we can still do the mapping there. So the gravel, let's select objects, properties, mapping, let's do the box mapping again. This is fairly simple just because everything's a box, and then it's just a matter of, let's change the ratios here to see what that looks like. Here, capped, yes. Block, and then I'll change all the properties there. So that's a bit better, I think. Could be even smaller, let's say 4. I think that's better. And then the wood, it looks a bit large too, so if we go back to this, we'll apply the box mapping as well. Capped, yes. Do 3. I think that's a bit better. Maybe a bit smaller as well. Okay, so I think that's good. Alright, so the next thing is probably to set some views. Like, I think we want to maybe be more in the space, right? And maybe we even want to turn on the roof. So kind of do that. And then you can right click, set view, and then named views, just call it save perspective 1. And then here, you can make sure that you synchronize the Enscape camera. And then you have the interior view. So right now you can see it's quite dark, right? The next thing you might want to do is add some Enscape object lights. And then I'm going to add lights. So what you can do in Rhino is add a variety of different lights. I think point lights are fine. And then I can just place it here. And then I can move it up, maybe vertically. Right. And then I can choose how intense it is, the color of it, and that will help illuminate the space. So let's just see. So you can see that's what it looks like when I add that. I can decrease the intensity, and it should be good. So next I will just move. Maybe I'll just copy a couple of these around. Maybe I'll come out, turn on project, go to my top view, and then I'll just, you know, copy a couple of these over. Right. And then go back to my perspective, set view, perspective 1, and then I'm back in this space. So that's what it looks like. Now it's a little bit too bright, right? So maybe I'll go back to my lights panel. It's right here, sorry. And then I'll turn it, maybe I'll just turn these down a bit. Just selected them all. 1. So I just brought them back all to 1. Still pretty bright. What 0.5 does. They're all just copies. So that's a little bit better, maybe something in between. Right? So that's a good start. And then, yeah, you can see with the pebbles, not like the best. This is where like a diffuse map probably would be a good idea. And I guess the wood, we could apply a UVW map to that as well. So we select the columns, select objects, zoom out, let's go to properties, UVW map, and then do box mapping. hit yes. And then let's see what their texture map is. Let's do like 3. Let's see what that looks like. We'll go back into the interior view and see what that looks like. Okay. You can try rotating it. Don't want it as like the lines. I think this is a little bit better. I just found you just need to test which axes it is. I think that's a little bit better. Okay, so one of the next pieces, I'm actually not too happy with the gravel, the way it looks. So I'm going to go back to the materials and gravel. I'm going to choose a different texture. So I've downloaded a different one, so this will be the base. So that's great. It actually has a bump map. So this is for height. And then for the reflections, okay, let's see what that looks like. Oh, I think I turned on the transmittance, so I will look at that. That's a bit better. Then I just need to check on the UVW map. It's like objects, properties. Let's see what the map. Okay, let's just make it smaller. It's a little bit better. Okay, I can always make it, yeah, even a little smaller. And then I think the roof, that needs a UVW map as well. Can see I can see what that looks like. I'm not a fan of the maybe metal look right there, so let's see if can apply the blue siding. Yeah, we'd ideally match that color. Yeah, it's a little bit too blue. This texture is a bit too repeated, so maybe I go back to the objects, the columns, and maybe that's a little bit better. Yeah. So you want a balance between like how repeated it looks like and you know how it gets applied to the object. So when you're ready to export the view, I think let's just go back. When you're ready to export the view, you can go to screenshot, or you can batch render. So batch render, I choose the view that I'm going to export, render images, and then I can save it where I want to save the file. You can actually see how it's doing. Usually it's pretty quick. So you can actually change a lot of different settings in Enscape too. If you click on the eyeball here, you'll notice the exposures, so you can kind of make it darker or lighter, kind of like a camera. Change the quality of the rendering that you export. Depth of field, again, is kind of like a camera where you can change how it focuses. Image, you can change any shadows, saturation, highlights. I'm just going to keep it simple right now, but feel free to play around with that. Brightness, you can change the natural light coming in, the artificial light brightness, so you can see at a lot of different lights. I can kind of toggle that on and off. The outlines. So objects can get kind of outlines to have more illustrative look if you'd like. So sometimes kind of like to add a bit of that character. And then the output, you can choose how big of an image that you're exporting, the type of image, PNG or JPEG is pretty common. And then object ID, material ID, these are channels that can help with post-processing, so layer selection when it comes to photoshopping, that kind of thing. So I usually like to switch that on, especially if you go to Photoshop. So I think that's good. And the next thing we want to do is actually the ceiling, I think, is incorrect when I looked at the image. So I'm just going to change that. Metal, actually I'll just go here. The metal, I'm going to change the texture to, I think it's beige when I looked at it. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I think that's a bit more like what is in the images that I had. We can have this. I'm just trying to pull up an image. So the inside actually is a wood, so it actually should apply like a wood texture to the inside panels instead of the blue siding. So I should go back to that. And maybe I want to apply like an inner layer to it, so I should like 3D model that instead. So let's quickly do that. Let's turn on project. Maybe I'll make a new layer. Just turn this on. So I have this curve. Then I'm gonna make 2D. Oh no, I'm gonna make planar surf. So I have the curve here. I have a planar surface. I can rename this to 3D interior walls. I'm just going to let's move that in. Or I'll copy it. make another copy, say here, and then I'll rotate it 90. And then I'll move it over. I'm just going to move it slightly off the surface so it doesn't overlap with the outer wall. So I'm kind of faking it at this point, but now I can apply the wood texture to it, let's say, and then I'll select objects and go to properties, the UVW map. I'll use the box command, find it's the easiest, and then I'll do that. Alright, so I just applied the wood texture to the interior walls, and then I'm just going to jump into my interior perspective view, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so it's pretty good. I maybe reduce the texture in that. Going back to the properties, you can change the mapping. Yeah, you notice that if I repeat it too much, you can see some of the overlaps. Like maybe I want a different texture, but I think it's not too bad. I think the trees will make a big difference. But yeah, so let's just go with that, and then make sure that we're setting the right. So this is the view, and then going back to Enscape, we can batch render the image, and then make sure we're in the folder we want to render it in. Right, you can see a bit of the texture. It's kind of, I think, overlapping there, so that's why you want to like move it off the surface. But let's see how that turned out. I go into this view. Yeah, so you can see some of that overlapping. So we'd want to move that texture off the wall. Surface. Maybe just move it like 1 millimeter. And then these objects, you can always apply materials based on the object as well. So instead of using the layer material, I can choose to do wood, and then I can go back to Enscape, my perspective view. So there's that. So let's export that again, batch render, hit perspective. I'll save it here. Just give it a moment. Alright. So this is our final rendered view. Not too bad. Again, I'd probably Photoshop some trees, or feel free to drop in some plant objects. but it's pretty good. I'd probably add wood texture to these slat objects. But yeah, it's a good start. Very basic again, but a lot of post-processing you can do as well. So if you like this video, I hope you enjoyed it. Learning about Enscape, applying materials, textures, UVW mapping, how to begin to change the scale of them and make sure that it's applied correctly. And if you like this video and want to learn more about Rhino, 3D modeling, rendering, architecture, and design, make sure you follow us to make sure you're notified on our next video. And if you have any questions, please comment below, and I'm happy to help. Till then, see you on the next one.